No, sir. If you have this time, I would request you to stay on with us for about 4-5 minutes. I've got Narendra Taneja of the BJP also, and I have Dr. Sajit Kumar, who's been working actively not just in Kerala but also with the Odisha government. So their opinions, and if you are kind enough, then we'll come back to you for your opinion. But thank you for taking the time, Mr. Mafoy Pandeyarajan. So if you consent, it'll be wonderful for you to stay on for another 10 minutes. It's my request, sir. I'm just going to bring in, as I leave the decision to Mr. Pandeyarajan, I'm going to bring in Narendra Taneja, Dr. Sajit Kumar and Dr. Ankur. Let me ask you, Dr. Sajit Kumar, what do you think is the right thing to do at this point? There are certain states which they believe they have got the situation under control and that they have to move towards partial lockdown, because there is a pressure of economic livelihood. There is easing the economic hardship. And of course, to get certain industries going, even if they have to help medical support, etc. So people have to step out. Now, how do we control this kind of a situation?
Suhas?
What's your opinion? Dr. Sajit?
For us, health and education is concerned. So our major focus right from the beginning of the epidemic has been oriented towards controlling the influx of the virus from people who are coming from outside, like for example from Italy or from the Middle East countries. We know that we have a big population of Keralites working in the Gulf countries, and the initial measures were all directed towards installing a proper quarantine, so that people could actually be staying in their own homes and preventing the disease to the general community. In fact, in the first few days, we could really succeed in that line because we had a very good contact tracing mechanism whereby all the primary and secondary contacts were traced. The road marks of all the people who traveled in Kerala after their landing in one of the 4 international airports were properly marked out. And we could trace actually around 1.5 lakhs of people who are now in quarantine. And we observed that in the last few days, the number of fresh seropositive cases, corona-positive cases have come down significantly. And the state is quite benefited by the lockdown mechanisms and by the proper installation of the quarantine. This also helped by the fact that people in Kerala are generally well oriented towards health measures which are being instituted by the government, and a large number of them are cooperating with us. But there are a few exceptions, where people are not revealing their original travel plans, where people are not getting confined to their homes. And, being a population with a reasonably high prosperity compared to many other states in the country, people also have taken the liberty sometimes to break the lockdown rules. But the police force has actually become very strong now, and they are seen almost everywhere, asking people not to travel, pushing people back to their homes, and occasionally confiscating their vehicles also for the rest of the lockdown period. So somehow we have a feeling that the lockdown is going towards a perfect point in Kerala, and this type of a lockdown is exactly what we want actually to happen in a state like Kerala, where we are quite confident that we will be able to contain the epidemic. Please note that we have actually the lowest of the mortality rates ever reported, because out of 300 plus positive cases, we had only 2 deaths. And these 2 deaths were actually in people who were above the age of 70 years and who had lots of comorbidities. Otherwise, the patients are doing well in our hospitals, and our preparedness plan is also going well ahead. We are planning to...
But here is my concern, Dr. Sajit Kumar. Amid all this argument that states are able to control, and kudos to Kerala and Tamil Nadu for the situation and for being able to get on top of situations, being able to control the rate of increase. But today what happened in Pathanamthitta, where those 2 cases, and especially that youngster who was asymptomatic, travelled after a 14-day quarantine and came to Kerala, on the 20th day, he was found COVID positive and he showed no symptoms. Now, if we have situations like this, where you can't actually figure out a symptom, but there are people walking around with COVID positivity, can we look at a partial lockdown situation? Can we look at easing of norms and allowing people back on the streets? Because we are then giving this disease humans to feed on.
Yeah, not at all. See, actually the asymptomatic cases do not constitute a majority. It's actually a rare or perhaps an anecdotal situation that has happened. But still, we feel that, any population put under lockdown for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, will always try to resist and rebel for that. But from the field of medical professionals, and in fact the Kerala branch of the IMA has also opined like this, that the lockdown in the present state should better continue for a few more weeks, so that we'll have a better ground to say that we are ready to combat occasional cases that are likely to arise from here and there. And it also remains the fact that Kerala is one place where there are a lot of inward and outward migrants. So we are really worried. Once the lockdown is over, what is going to happen, and what is the sort of contamination that is likely to happen after the lockdown is a big worry for us right now. So we are actually not for releasing all the lockdown on day 15.
Well, Dr. Sajid, I'm going to bring in. I'm just going to bring in Narendra Taneja ji. And then go back to Maphai Pandeyarajan. We should have Dr. Isaac Boguch in about 5 minutes joining us. He's also a renowned researcher and he's been studying this virus very extensively across the world. So we'll try and go to him in about 5 minutes. But quickly, he should be joining us at that time. But we will. I'm going to bring in Narendra Taneja and then go back to Maphai Pandeyarajan. And Dr. Ankur, I'll come to you. Thank you for your patience in just a bit. I'm just going to ask you, Narendra Taneja ji, where are you inclined? Where is the BJP inclined? Because the GOM, the ministers are talking. You guys are looking at the situation. Plus, the BJP has 18 crore members. So you're also getting feedback from your cadre across states. What is the mood on ground? Do people want a lift of the lockdown and partial relaxation, or are people saying, get rid of this disease and then let us get out?
Well, you see, the Prime Minister, as you know, has been holding discussions with various chief ministers, and other ministers are holding discussions at various levels. And as you know, the Cabinet Committee, the Experts Committee, we are, practically consultations are going on real-time basis. But the feedback is a bit of a mix, and you have seen the Chief Minister of Punjab, for instance, unilaterally saying that he is not going to wants to extend it by another 2 weeks. So there's a mix, this thing. But you see, the important thing here is basically 2 points. Number one, which the Prime Minister has repeatedly conveyed, very important, life of every single Indian is precious. And the government will do whatever possible to protect life. Life is the most important. At the same time, there are concerns, like say economic and jobs and all those things. Those are also being addressed at the same time. But the government will basically is going to go by the scientific analysis, A, of feedback from experts and doctors, B, of various states. And then the decision will be taken only closer to the 14th, maybe on the 13th. That's the scenario at the moment. But as I said, we are a union of states. The states have their own right. The government is very sensitive to that. But at the same time, the Prime Minister is holding consultation, whereas ministers are holding consultation, and the final view will be taken in consultation with every single state. And in consultation, of course, first and foremost, doctors and experts who understand this area better than anyone else.
Well, I'm going to quickly ask Maphai Pandeyarajan one quick question. Sir, thank you for your patience. And then, Dr. Ankur, I'll come to you. If states like the situation which is there in Kerala, which is there in Tamil Nadu, now nationally there are other states which say extend the lockdown. KCR, right next door, is of the opinion, let's extend the lockdown, let's beat this virus totally. Will you be inclined to go with a majority opinion, or would you want the freedom to decide as a state what is in its best interest? And there again, will the limitations be intra-district, that inter-district movement is restricted? What about interstate movement? What about public transport and services? Has all of this been thought of, Mr. Pandeyarajan?
Yeah, sure. I think our Chief Minister has been taking cognizance of all the aspects put together. For us, clearly the number one priority is life of every individual. Each person's life is precious. So we would go by, and we believe a decision on this kind should be taken for the nation in its entirety. It cannot be done at a district level. It can't be done at a state level. In my view, he would really monitor how he are going for the 1 week, the trend at the national level.
Well, Tirupandirajan, I think we've lost the link with you, sir. We'll try and see if you can join us back again. Some of the challenges of technology, but we've got to work through all of this. So one of the issues that we will realize, and perhaps service providers will realize, is that the bandwidth that they claim perhaps is not the bandwidth that they deliver, and they need to act on that as ASAP, even after the lockdown period, more so during the lockdown period. Yes, everybody's brought down the encryptions, and of course, when I say in terms of the kind of data that's being pushed, they've thinned it down, service, content platforms, etc. But service providers, you guys need to do a little better. But that is on a lighter note. Let's go back to the serious discussion. Dr. Ankur, thank you very much for your patience. Let me ask you, as Executive Director of the Bird Group, what is your opinion? Do you believe that we can go to a phase of partial lockdown now? Can states look at the fact that let's look at just the hotspots and then just go and let the others go about their business? Is that going to work? Are we capable enough to handle a 60-40, 50-50 kind of a situation?
You know, I think first of all, I must compliment the government right now to get to the point where we are. I think we did that, and we did that very well. We've been able to contain the numbers to the numbers what you see right now. I think the only gap here is in testing, so that exactly we know how many numbers are actually infected. And I think we should do that for the time being. To open a lockdown, to open a lockdown completely, I would not say that we are at that particular point right now, because I don't think that we've hit the top of the curve of whatever the infections are there right now. And I don't think that we could do it next week, but I think eventually the lockdowns would have to open up. And the cities, the districts which have been without any cases for a certain time, 7-8 days, and if you can contain those cities, those districts, I think they can go back to their normal lives. But I think to do it next week, the governments are definitely doing their jobs to ensure that people come back to their lives as early as possible. Is it next week? Is it next week afterwards? I don't think I have an answer to that, but I can only say that if we open the lockdowns without containing the virus, and I think it's a very infective disease, as we've seen it around the world, all the work, what we've done, all the sacrifices, what we made over the last days and this 21-day period, they might all go waste. Even if there's a single case which is infectious and that spreads around the virus to communities.
Well, let me just quickly ask you this, Dr. Ankur, and then Dr. Sajid, I'm going to take this question and I'm going to ask you to take it off from where Dr. Ankur leaves it. How much of testing in a state? What should be the percentage of testing in a state? And what should be the benchmark for a state to decide that, yes, we can ease on the lockdown? Would you say 48 hours of no new cases and at least a certain percentage, say about 50 to 60% of the lockdown hotspots are being tested? What would be your benchmark, Dr. Ankur?
I think globally people have done good benchmarks. I think South Korea has topped the list of doing the testings. They've done a good job in getting to the point where we are. Now, India is by itself a subcontinent, if you'd have a look at it. I mean, to get to normal lives, to have planes flying, to have everybody else in their own businesses, I think I think at this particular time is a long shot. But as you rightly said, maybe that could be a test that if we could have 4 to, I would say, 7 days of 4 to 5 days of no new cases, and we've tested extensively in a particular hotspot and not found any more cases, I think then that particular state, that particular district can go off the lockdown. I think the good part about India is that we've got large population bases amongst the districts as well, which can actually go back for stimulation of the economy again in any areas of there. I come from the hospitality and aviation industry. I don't think aviation will get to a normal soon, but as far as hospitality, restaurants and all are concerned, if that state is all cleared up, if that area is all cleared up, I mean, at least the local residents can start moving out. But the caveat here is that there has to be tremendous lockdown activities at the borders to ensure that infections don't come back again.
Right. True. Dr. Sajid Kumar, I'm running out of time, but I'm going to, because Dr. Isaac Bogoch is also going to join us any moment now. But where do you stand, Dr. Sajid Kumar? You've worked in Kerala. You've seen how Kerala is there. You are also, I think, I'm given to understand, helping the Odisha government. So please tell me, what should be the benchmark for states to decide whether or not they want to ease on lockdown?
I am with the Kerala stage. Okay.
Sorry.
Now the issue is.
Sorry, I stand corrected there. So with Kerala as the template,
Yeah. See, the issue is, as far as this particular epidemic is concerned, it's not actually the indigenous cases which constitute all the problems. Most of the problems have been actually brought to us. It's something like an imported issue for us, which comes from so many other parts of the world. And maybe other parts of the country also, and then they bring seeds over here, and then they start germinating and creating problems for us. So, and we have to really appreciate one thing. See, remember that the Middle East, the other European countries, and the United States, UK, and so many other countries where they do have a real problem now, are not that far from us. So the moment you open your borders, the moment you open your skies, the whole show is going to be repeated again. And we are going to be again in square number one, where, we'll have to start doing all these things. So let us remember that, small containments here and there, small isolated success stories from small districts or small states should not be made as a criteria for, making everything open again. That's going to be a big mistake. So that's our concern. It's not that, it's not that we have succeeded in the last 2 weeks. It's not that we have succeeded in the last, 2 months, or that, we can wait for another incubation period of 14 days. Doesn't matter.
Correct.
Still the flow is still there, and the flow is likely to regain its force any time. So we have to be really careful till perhaps the whole humanity is at good control of the epidemic all over the world. Especially in a state like Kerala, where we have a lot of inbound travel coming in.
Absolutely.
From other places. So we have to be careful. There's nothing like being relaxed just because, you have some good results over a period of 1 week or 2 weeks. That's not going to be the story at all. In fact, that is what has happened in China also, perhaps. They had a feeling that, everything is getting under control. And now the recent reports say that they are getting cases which are coming from other places coming back to China, so that their new towns are also becoming affected nowadays. So we have to be very, very careful. We have to learn from the lessons from other places and realize this particular fact.
Absolutely. Somewhere in your gut, your head says, let's open it up, let's go easy. But there's something in your gut which says, listen, wait, there is a warning. Don't take it easy. Don't let up. Just stick at it. Make sure it's completely wiped out before you start. Narendra Taneja ji, final question, and coming back to you before we go to Dr. Isaac Bogoch. I'm just going to say, out of 700 odd votes on my Twitter handle, on that poll question, 48%, so 1% more now from the top of the show, 48% now are saying extend the lockdown pan-India. Let me ask you this. Are you going to set targets for states? Are you going to tell states that if you have this, that means no new case for 3 days, that is 72 hours, and perhaps certain other benchmarks, then you can lift the lockdown?
Anand, we are dealing with a very shifty, deadly enemy. We have to be extremely careful. And this has to be a scientific disease. This cannot be only political disease. You just heard my, co-panelist from Kerala. You have heard the Chief Secretary of Uttar Pradesh. You have heard the Chief Minister of Punjab. And I have, I interact extensively with my friends in BJP and outside BJP. My sense is, my personal opinion, not as a spokesperson, my personal opinion is India probably would need to extend it by a minimum at least another 2 weeks. Because we are an extremely complex country and there are many challenges. You see, so my sense is that we'll have to go based on what the experts say. At the same time, we have to keep in mind the way sometimes people can behave in different parts of the country. Yes, economy is suffering. Yes, their normal life is suffering, but the life of every single Indian, that's more pressure. It has to be a scientific decision taken on this basis that, look, what is the best for the people of this country? Some parts of India, some districts might complain, but that's not how we really, need to go ahead. We will need to take a call, and my sense is that, as I said, based on what I'm gathering from the people, we might need to extend it by at least minimum 2 weeks.
Right. Another 2 weeks, yeah, somewhere we said let's look at the 30th of April. We've stuck, if we're sticking it out till about the 14th, let's go through this entire month and let's just ensure that this disease dies in India. There are no new cases, and then we can like start afresh and get out rather than go cautiously and not know what's going to happen next and which is going to be the next hotspot. Gentlemen, I've got Dr. Isaac Bogoch. He's very special tonight, and please listen to his opinion because he is an expert in infectious disease. He's an infectious disease specialist operating out of the Toronto General Hospital. Dr. Isaac, great talking to you. Let me ask you this. The world over, are we dealing with this pandemic in the right manner? Is social distancing and isolation the only way to counter this disease?
Currently, one-size-fits-all answer here.
Well, Dr. Isaac Bogoch, thank you very much. You've made some very pertinent points. I've got an august panel of guests who have been hearing your thoughts also, and they've also been expressing their opinion that yes, we can move towards easing the issues and perhaps the hardship of the people, but not at the cost of lives, not at the cost of risking further infection. So perhaps 2 more weeks from the 14th. Let's be ready for that. Let's be ready for that. Let's not keep our hopes up till the time we've defeated this disease. Thank you very much to all our panelists. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, it's time for TRS Live. Hangover inke gano ka doesn't go soon. When they sing, when they make music, we got the foot tapping, ladies and gentlemen. The Meet Brothers are in the house. We see them, talk to them, and also we will get them to